So when I first started playing Scrap Mechanic, I got out to that mechanic station and started building stuff, started doing some farming, figured out where the trader was, figured out, that he could sell me that shotgun that sounded pretty sweet, and I figured I could see my way clear to finding, uh, the necessary stuff. And sure enough, there was a warehouse that I had investigated earlier. And the first thing you take a look around, drive around in a car, and say, hey, what's that building? Hey, what are those blue things there? I wonder if they'll be my friend. And the answer is no, they won't be your friend. So anyway, I carried on with the farming, and I got myself a spud gun, and I went to visit those blue guys again, and yeah, I wasn't their friend this time. Got my stuff back from the last time. So anyway, I then figured I might be able to clear this warehouse and get these seeds this here trader wants. And so I got my spud gun and got a whole bunch of potatoes and back to that warehouse. It was the only warehouse I knew of. It seemed to me that all warehouses were probably 5 levels tall at the time. And so anyway, I went into that thing and I had a damn miserable experience uh, getting those stupid seeds out of there. I got killed any number of times, ran back, and finding my way up to the top. Um, I didn't enjoy it. And in fact, I put the game down for quite some time. And then at some point, I saw a video that Con Gaming made where he builds up a tank and goes into the warehouse. And I saw that, and my whole perception of the game changed somewhat right there, because I'm like, obviously the problem was that I was holding it wrong. And, I looked at his tank and I studied it pretty carefully because he doesn't exactly tell you how he built it. Uh, and, and I built a tank and I cleared the next warehouse with some ease and said, I can do this, and I kept iterating on the design and making better tanks. And one thing I never saw out of the YouTube community was anybody else making a video like Khan did. Is it some dark secret that you could just wipe clean a warehouse with a tank? Because you can. That is to say, all but the top floor, which has the red bots in it, and the way the explosion mechanics are, um, I think that there's simply no way that if you get the drop on a red bot, you can one-shot him. Uh, if the red bot gets the drop on you, then this tank won't help you because the explosion radius will go through, as far as I can figure, pretty much any armor, and we'll take out these level 5 uh, controllers here and your seat, and it's just not worth it. And so what you do if you have a tank like this is that you use it to clear every floor but the top. If you're in one of these tanks, you are, I assure you, completely invincible while you're in the tank. If you get out of the tank to pick up some loot, or if your tank is not nimble enough to get around some corner or another, that's when you can get whacked. So you need a tank, pretty much what Khan built in the first place. You need a, small, nimble tank, and the one obstacle that you should be most interested in, I think the most challenging is there's sets of stairs that you have to go up that go up and back. And that I haven't found a better way than tank steering. And you kind of need to have a design that's not tippy, so you have to make it kind of low. So this is the tank that's kind of like my final iteration on the topic. It differs from Khan's tank mainly in the way the turret traverses. That it has a full-on turret in this thing, Whereas Khan, his, just rotated the spud gun and his seat was fixed. I find it's easier to get a grasp on where your shot's gonna go in a design like this. And you'll notice that it's cut away. I did that just so we'll be able to talk about how the thing works. But you can see that that shot was pretty close. And since I said you were immune, you can spend all the time you want aiming, and so you can tweak your positioning just right and left, just uh, pretty accurately, and your up and down is also pretty finely controlled. And if you're a little bit better with the with WASD than I am, I'm sure you can do better than this display here, which is pretty sensitive. But in any case, you can land, eventually a kill shot. And if you're in the warehouse and you're not loose like this, you're getting in practice, and you can hit him with more accuracy. So anyway, like I said though, that the key is that it allows you to go up and down very, very finely, and that's, I think, a good thing. And if you watch Khan's video, you never see him taking out a take bot at range, and that's because with his tank, it'd be pretty hard to take one that's, for instance, on the occasions where they're like up high in the storage racks. This one can take them pretty much wherever they are, and you don't have to get out. So again, I promised to do the one thing that I wish that Khan had done, which is tell you how to make it. The first thing you have to know is tank steering. There are a lot of good videos on tank steering. I'll try and be quick. So the way this thing works is there's you can't do it with WASD. Well, you can, but you won't be able to do it in this scenario because we're going to need the WASD for something else. But what you do is you just have buttons like that, and you wire them into the seat. Now, another critical thing to do with tank steering is you probably want to either remap your keyboard. For instance, I'm using I think YGHJ is my equivalent for WASD steering, and I just have gone into the settings for controls, and where is it? There you go. I have them set up like that. And the fifth button is going to control our gun, so I made that F. So that's one way to go. Another really good way to go is if you're using the Steam version of the game, which doubtless you are, and you happen to have a loose Xbox or PlayStation or controller, you can use big picture mode to set up mappings between that and buttons on your keyboard, and that's extremely effective. I would be using that right now, except that I have my controls set up for my flyer, and I don't want to change them because it's kind of a pain in the ass. Anyway, to implement tank steering, you need for each wheel you need two bearings, a forward bearing and a reverse bearing. And for each side, you need a motor, one that controls your sides, forward motion, and one that controls your sides, backward motion. And for me, I arrange it so that I've got this is the forward motor for the right side, and this is the backward motor for the right side. And same thing over here. And then, as far as controls go, you do need logic gates. And you just need an OR logic gate. It's very simple. That when you want the outside, the right side wheels to be moving forward, as long as either the user is asking to go forward, or the user is asking to turn left. That's kind of a tricky thing. And, so you end up with a pattern like that. And so tank steering, there you go. For the turret, there's an obvious way to do it. And that's controlling the left, the swivel motion with bearing lock steering, and the up-down with an electric motor. Oops, that was embarrassing. So, with that we can get our WASD here. There you go. Can shoot somebody other than me. But, that's kind of annoying. That when I turn left and right, it keeps swiveling back. That's what this is. I don't know if you're familiar, but if you get a level 5 seat, that you can use this. The E button becomes available on the bearing, and you can do this. And if you turn bearing lock on, that makes it so that when you turn with your A and D, that it'll stay put at the angle that you left it at. And as you can see, that's way too quick for us. And so we can adjust it back a little bit, and see? So there we can aim pretty precisely, right? We can hit a tape bot with that. But what if the tape bot was more to the right? No problem. We can adjust the steering here so that it'll go further. And now we can aim at that whole range. The thing that's bad about it is that it's very, that it has, I've turned it to the slowest speed and it's still too fast, which is really frustrating. So what can we really do? Now, this is a really good arrangement to be able to use, a single bearing to be able to turn the turret. Because, like I was saying before about a tank, that you need it to be nimble, you need it to be low. So you don't want to have a whole bunch of engines and whatever it is. So, what to do? How about instead of connecting the motor to the elevation, we connect like now once again we want to use that bearing lock steering, but on this guy this time. And actually 27 degrees is fine, but we still want to get the turn speed down. So now if we go left and right on the A and the D, that we get the elevation and we get good enough precision there, that's not so bad. And then we can turn left and we can turn right as much as we want, even with as much precision as we need. So that's really all there is to the tank. There's tank steering that we talked about how to do, and then my turret control, or precision turret control. And, so that allows us to have, a pretty darn accurate spud gun, even at range and even at weird elevations and things like that. And yet, the whole vehicle sits, I think this is as low as you could ever get it to go. And that means, that you're less prone to tipping over, and you can squeeze it into more spots. I do believe that you could do better than this in some respects. I do wonder, because if you look, your real constraint is the size of the elevator, right? So maybe you could make a tank that was a little bit longer. I did a little bit of experimenting with that, about making an articulated tank. I did struggle with the longer designs in those stairways that I mentioned. I also wonder, if you have two people, well, what could you do? Could you maybe have, machines with different purposes? I don't know. I play solo, so I haven't really thought too deep about what you could do if you had two people in two distinct vehicles. Certainly, I really lament the speed. I wish that there was a way to make this thing have a go fast mode. I've thought about that in theory, that you could have a go fast mode if you didn't mind uh, either making it one block wider here, to have a third uh, bearing, the overdrive bearing, I guess you could call it, that's go forward fast. And then, you'd need, a couple of more motors to jam in there. But, at the tail, you could probably smack them around back there and it'd be okay. You could certainly stand to have it grow backwards by a block or two. So this thing worked well in the current iteration of warehouses. It is a bit concerning to me that it feels like rock, paper, scissors, that you go into a warehouse with just you and your spud gun, and you find that rock smashes scissors, and then you get yourself a tank, and paper covers rock. You go from having a miserable experience where the tape bots are just plinking you at random from every angle when you least expect it, to the point where you're completely immune from what they do, which is kind of it's kind of not how a game ought to be. It ought to be a little bit of a more involved question than that. But comparatively, if you go upstairs and the red bots, again, scissors cut paper, and you're out of luck. I don't know how they're going to update the warehouse in the next iteration of Scrap Mechanic, but I certainly hope that the game devs figure out that Scrap Mechanic is not meant to be a first-person shooter, and the making these tanks is the fun part of Scrap Mechanic. It might be that we'll need more than one kind. I don't know. But in any case, at the current iteration of Scrap Mechanic, it's just much more fun to go through a warehouse with one of these tanks, because winning is always fun. Again, I'd like to really thank Khan, for building the tank and showing me I was holding it wrong, because this is the correct way to do it, and it's easily something that you can build. It just takes, well, it's a non-trivial amount of grinding to get all of the controllers that you'll need, but it's fun to do. And then once you clear that warehouse and you take home all that fat loot, it'll seem worth it. So anyway, enjoy playing Scrap Mechanic. Thanks for watching.